I have a feeling, could be completely wrong, that most of you watching my channel and other music channels out there are not actually making that much music of your own. I hope I'm wrong. I don't think I am. So why exactly is that? Well, I posted the question to my email list and to a Facebook group started and moderated by Dan Graham. It's mostly about production music, but there's lots of reasons to not write all types of music. The answers I got were diverse. Most of them are reasons I've experienced at least once or 50 times in my life.
Oh, you did it.
How does it sound with the flow? Listen to the difference here. Is this much better? It's much better, isn't it? It's not windy at all. No need. I'm going to do the proper YouTube thing and give you some advice on how you can overcome everything that keeps you from writing music. However, sometimes it's nice to be heard and feel like we are not alone. But I have asked some of my talented friends to chime in on how they overcome the desire to do nothing. Santa.
Keep my parts in there, okay?
Okay. The number one reason why you're not writing music, according to Facebook and email, is time. Not a big surprise there. We're all busy, I get it. Legitimate reasons, family, work. Quite a few of you mentioned that you need long periods of uninterrupted time to get work done or to get into the flow. And I feel you on that. Sometimes I'm not doing a whole lot at the very beginning of the process. You're just kind of waiting for things to happen. And I used to think that was me being lazy, but I've realized that is part of the process. Without the ability for me to carve out a handful of hours, I usually don't get a ton done. I've shared on this channel many times that part of my income, a big part of my income, is royalties. And it took forever for me to write to get to where there was money coming in to where I could say, I'm going to take half the day today and write a track. That certainly wasn't always the case. But there was a time when there were no royalties and I had to figure it out. And I had to get into the mode of writing and writing a lot. Time is limited. And if you want to be a good father or a good worker, then you got to give your time to the appropriate places. This endeavor does require a significant amount of time. So whenever you can block off a large amount of time and only do that thing, maybe it's, look, I'm giving you advice. I'm probably going to keep doing that. All right, I think we're going to have to relocate. One more wave. And we're out. I tried to get down there and film, but the lady wouldn't let me. $20. Reason number 2 why we don't write as much music as we should: doubt. Or to elaborate, perfectionism, doubt, and fear of judgment. That's annoying. There's a lot of great music out there. I have spent a lot of time thinking, why would I even bother? What am I adding to this? And it's a legitimate question. I mean, there are millions and millions of pieces of music out there. Why do they need ours? Most of the projects I don't even start because I think they're not going to be any good. And then there are ones I get halfway through and I think there's no way this is going to be worth anything, so why even finish? Fortunately for me, I found an outlet. Oh man, the phone fell in that little crack between the seat and the console. There's no way I'm getting that. What was I saying? Fortunately with library music, which I got into, I had to write. I mean, it wasn't a choice. I had to write 12 tracks, even if they weren't good enough. One of my favorite stories is the 12th track on a 12-track album that I had to turn in with 12 tracks. I almost abandoned multiple times, and it ended up being one of the highest earners that I've ever written. I learned a valuable lesson. What I think is good is not always what's best. Sometimes we're not the best judge of our own creations. Okay, I gotta get it. I'll get my hand stuck in here. I did get my hand stuck. From Brett: I worry that what I write won't be amazing. I sometimes agonize for days over a few notes. Been there. Justin: feelings of inadequacy. I often think other composers' tracks sound better than mine. And heck, they probably do. Justin, that's not what I meant to say. I was flustered sitting in the middle of the road, and I've never heard your music, so I can't comment on it, and I'm sure it's great. But truthfully, if we get into this and we're always comparing ourselves to other people, we're going to be miserable. And also, practically speaking, in the production music world, think of it this way. Clients form relationships with libraries, publishers, And so when I write a track, I'm competing against all the other tracks that are connected to that same library and publisher because they made an agreement with the client. That's not always how it works, but it does improve our chances. Now, most libraries have a lot of tracks to compete against, but it's a smaller pond and not the ocean. Back to the car. I told you I was going to bring in a few friends, and the first one is my friend Dave Kropp, and I wanted him to talk to you because he runs this composer community, and I'll tell you more after this.
You know, one of the biggest challenges that I see being a composer is so much of it is kind of isolating. We're on our own. We're in darkened studios, often in headphones, not saying a word for hours and hours. And it can be really, really isolating. And so it's one of the reasons that I wanted 52 Qs to exist, is to have a community where like-minded people can get together who all kind of pull together to become better themselves. And here's the real secret sauce to all of this. It's in feedback. Because the Jedi mind trick that happens when you leave feedback for somebody, right? Somebody posts up their cue and you leave feedback. Yes, you are helping them, but the real winner is you, because in the process of leaving feedback, you are becoming a better composer.
I've gotten to know Dave through the Production Music Conference, and I see him every year along with a bunch of people that are part of his community. So not only do I get to hear him talk about it and think, oh, it's really cool, I get to see other people who obviously enjoy it and obviously get a lot out of it. And the ability to get feedback that is from people that are in this business and that know about what they're talking about, that is very valuable. It's a lot better than just asking your poor wife or your poor girlfriend to give you their feedback because they don't know what to say. Cars are coming. I'm going. Hoping this doesn't fall in it. I think those are hogs. Reason number 3, you're not writing music, Santa?
Ho, ho, ho. Burnout.
In production music, there is no way around. No matter what anybody tells you, you have to write a lot of music. And the people that say you don't have to write as much music as you think are still writing hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of tracks. You don't want to just pump out terrible music. Obviously, that's not a good business plan. But you do need to write a significant amount. And burnout is a real thing. I've personally tried to write in lots of different styles, and that keeps me somewhat engaged because I've got to learn something new. But even then, there's a point where I know that there are certain styles of music that do better than others because I've got the data to prove it, and I don't really want to write another happy acoustic track or a building overly optimistic, bright, shiny, yay type of track. What are your thoughts on sleigh bells, Santa? We get into music to be creative. We want to make new things all the time. So when we find ourselves in any type of situation where we're having to recreate the same thing over and over again and find new ways to be unique, that can be a bit of a struggle. My friend Sam said, I'm going to quote Sam a few times, "The often unadventurous nature of production music leaves little room for creative innovation. It can be samey and boring." I'm going to sit down. Okay, Santa? Who are you? You Norris? Verstappen? Which one? Norris. What's funny is that feeling like we need to write the same thing over and over again could be a challenge, but also not knowing what to write could be a challenge because we have access to everything. Just so you know, if you happen to need some soft drum samples or some drums hit by mallets or a vibey, really quiet piano that can also do some big fun things, and this really cool random toolkit that was voted the best bang for your buck in 2024 by Sample Library Review, well, Somerville Sounds has got you covered. Link in description. I asked my friend Jameson Nathan Jones to chime in on this.
I think one of the things that affected me the most when I switched from a more classical background and way of writing music to making music in a computer with the DAW is just the overwhelm at having way too many options all of a sudden. And that continued until I remembered something that my composition teacher told me back when I was studying composition. He used to say every piece has a model. And what he meant by that was by sort of accepting a structure and a form and self-imposing some limitations, creative limitations on ourselves, it kind of unlocks another level of creativity and allows us to explore within those forms, within those structures. And that's been incredibly helpful for me, starting with a limitation to kind of focus my creativity. It's like a filmmaker. They aren't redesigning the narrative structure every time they make a film. They're doing interesting things within that set structure.
You know, I'm never going to be the channel that teaches you in-depth harmony and composition techniques, but Jameson absolutely can, so go check him out. But yeah, give yourself limitations. Find ways to put what you're doing into a box and stay in that box. And if you're in the production music world, try to do it for 12 tracks. You will learn a lot. Lights out and away we go! We stopped by Brenham, Texas after a trip to the Kenny store. There are just going to be cars. I'm going to have to go somewhere where it's more quiet. It's our last day. My dad took back his tripod, so I am a little tilted. The fog is crazy. I'm in my PJs. Number 4, mental blocks and creative resistance. Imposter syndrome, that comes up all the time. That's the new phrase that we can't get away from. But just this idea that we all feel like we are imposters in this world where everybody else knows what they're doing, but we don't. And I have felt that forever, still feel it. I think that's a requirement to feel that. And what we realize is most people just don't know what they're doing. They're just winging it and making it up. And some people fake it. Some people are good at putting on a face that makes it look like they are in control, and others are not. I'm more like, oh shucks, I don't know what I'm doing. But truth is, I can fight my way through most scenarios. I picked this shirt up off the floor, so. Lack of focus was a big one. That's a problem for me. I'm sure it has to do with our phones and distractions and everything that wants our attention, but I have a hard time just getting my brain. I'm trying to do too many things now. I think I've shared that on this channel, and I jump back and forth from one to the next, and I forget what I'm doing at the very moment. Fear of starting and or finishing projects. I'd have delayed this video forever. I just kept putting it off, and I love making videos. It's as if I forget that you have to start for the project to start, if that makes sense. I never feel good about what's about to happen when I sit down or I take the camera out for the first time. It's always difficult. And then my brain starts going. Then I start thinking about the next thing, and I realize how much I enjoy the creative process, but I don't ever realize that at the beginning of the project, ever. It's not until I get into it and I realize I've spent, a 30-minute car ride just thinking about, well, how could I take this section and move it around, and how can I find an intro or a B-roll shot to get me from here to here? Or you would think that I and we would understand that ahead of time, but I don't think I ever will. Samuel says, overthinking, procrastination, and the overwhelming feeling of all the work that needs to be done stop me from writing. No doubt. Someone mentioned the lack of formal training, and I get that. I spent a lot of time thinking about how, well, I didn't go to school for this. But look, even if I'd have gone to school for this, I'm 45 now, I would have gone to school for 4 years, from 18 to 22. So I probably should have picked up on a few things. Keep in mind that you're making a lot of noise.
I'm not trying to.
Okay. Another thought on the whole formal training. Most of the music that I've written that has done well didn't require a ton of formal training. I really do believe it's true that wherever you are in your musical journey, from the very beginning. I mean, I get people reaching out saying, I'm trying to use your plugins on GarageBand. Wherever you are, there are tools that can help you write something that's worth sharing. Maybe not professionally, maybe not something that's going to make you money, but it's worth putting your heart into, but it's good enough that you can add your thing to it and start creating. I always think back to when I taught in a music production school, and most of the music made by the students was awful. But then every now and again, someone would put something together and they would just trust their instincts and start putting sounds together and layering their own vocals, and it would be amazing. And maybe their next track wouldn't be, but that track was great. I think that's one thing you get after 10, 15, 20 years is your lows are not as low, your bad songs are not as bad. Everybody can make something. You're fine. I can cut anytime. Dad's throwing the trash away. I asked my friend Ross King, incredible songwriter. I mean, I've known him for so long, I kind of forget how great he is at putting words and music together. But I asked him to chime in on, creativity and how he gets past certain creative blocks.
So one of the things that's a struggle for me is that I started out writing just for me, for fun. Now I often will struggle with, well, what's this for? What's sort of the best case scenario for this? If you go to a concert, the performer will do a song and somebody will inevitably say, I felt like they were singing just to me. If you write for you, it is for someone, right? Because you are doing the most sincere sort of soul processing that you can do. And even though it's personal to you, it may not feel like a universal thing. In the billions of people in the world, a lot of people will probably relate to that story. But when in doubt, write for you. I like to keep on my phone or on a little pad, I have this little book. I'll write down things that I realize I've been hearing a lot in conversation, or things I've been saying a lot in conversations, or things I've been thinking a lot or feeling passionate about. If I'm bumping into that idea, or expressing that idea, I probably have passion for it. And so there's probably something I can do with that. If you think it a lot, if you say it a lot, if you hear it a lot, then you should write it a lot.
If you are at all interested in writing words, I know most of my channel is about the music behind the words, right? Ross is the kind of guy that can write a song from his heart, but also craft a song for a very specific purpose. And he's got an online course. I'm going to point you to that site. Reach out to Ross, sign up for his deal. It might change your life. Okay, I want to finish with a few things that don't really fit into a category. My friend Sam Burt, the fact that every track we do has no guarantee of earning a penny, even after years of training and financial investment. That's a good one. I have enough data on all of my songs to know that if I sit down to write a tune today, the chance of that tune making significant amounts of money are very, very small. My personal history, and everybody is different. I think some people can align with my path, but you earn the opportunities to write a lot of music that will not make money, so that a handful of tracks will find it into this world where everything lines up and they get used in some scene that maybe no one ever sees, or very few people. You will probably never see it, and it plays forever, and it makes a significant amount of money over time. And if I look at my music, 20% of the tracks have made 80% of the money. That's just the way it goes. Here's another point. Mark Petrie, I hope I'm saying your last name right, Mark. Quantity of tracks doesn't necessarily equate to noticeable increase in earnings. That's a big one. I know that I am better now than I was when I started, and yet some of those early tracks that found their place keep making a lot of money, and these masterpieces that I'm making now may not do well at all. There might be something to that, by the way. That could be another video. Simplicity and minimalism in this world often does better than the big productions. Not always. Yeah, we might have to revisit that. I don't know how to say this without being cliche. The joy is in the journey. Working on the music or working on the videos, now to me they're very similar. The process of being in it, that's what I want. That's what I enjoy. That's what is exciting. Again, I can't talk about my career like I'm Michael Jordan or anything like that, but I have had successes that have paid money, and that's great. It feels good. But we're not wired to be like, oh, I got paid, that's awesome. I think we're wired to want to enjoy what we do daily. I think that's what we're all kind of chasing after. Maybe some of us go a little too far with that. But we want to enjoy the process of creating because that does something to us. And that's the place that I want to be. I don't know. So maybe my big advice for this video is when you're thinking about all these things that aren't a part of the process of creating that get us down. So maybe we start thinking, I don't feel like doing this right now. But maybe in an hour or two, when I kind of find my way in this track, maybe it'll be different. And learn to trust our experience. And if you don't have experience, this is me telling you, and I bet quite a few other people will join me in the comments to say that I'm right here. I bet that you just got to go for it and figure out what's next along the way. Go watch this old video about why your music sounds amateur. Talk soon.